I was driving my family through an area of Yellowstone called the Hayden Valley. We noticed a group of people assembled on top of a small bald hill. We decided to pull off the road and investigate. It is customary to ask a gathered group at Yellowstone, "What are you looking at?" especially when they're using scopes and binoculars. A man from Tennessee answered the inquiry very excitedly. "There are a pair of wolves stalking that herd of elk right there." "Oh, really?" I asked. My family had yet to see any wolves in Yellowstone, even though we had been visiting the park for about 10 years. There are certain valleys in Yellowstone that wolves are known to frequent. Lamar Valley in the northeast of the park is one of the most prominent valleys, but Hayden Valley was also known to host wolves and bears. We had seen a number of bears throughout Hayden Valley. In fact, a few years earlier, a younger bear was feeding on a bison carcass in the very same spot where these two wolves were. On that occasion, a much larger bear lumbered out of the woods, headed right for the bison carcass and the smaller bear. Someone shouted, "There's going to be a fight!" Maybe I should have kept my mouth shut, but I offered my 2 cents on the situation. I said, "There isn't going to be a fight. The smaller bear will be too smart for that." Sure enough, as the larger bear approached, the smaller bear skedaddled out of there. Hayden Valley hosts its fair share of excitement, and apparently this guy from Tennessee was convinced that he was seeing wolves out there. I am an odd collector of several unusual things. I am a lover of peculiar knives, for example, many of which I purchased in and around Yellowstone. I have a small collection of native flutes. I collect them because I can play them. They have 6 holes. I have 7 fingers. I also collect scopes and binoculars. I have a couple of really cool scopes and binoculars that work really well for looking at things in Yellowstone. I ran back to my car and I fetched my scope. The guy from Tennessee guided me to the wolves by showing me the landmarks that he used to spot them. But every time I tried to use those landmarks, I landed on a pair of geese. After the 3rd try, I had to say something. I said, "Dude, I'm seeing a pair of geese out there." "Let me see that," he said incredulously. He saw the geese that my scope was pointed at, but he wasn't convinced. He asked if he could navigate the scope. I said that would be fine. He used his landmarks, and sure enough, they directed him right to the pair of geese that I saw. He shouted his disappointment, "They're geese!" As soon as he shouted that, I saw the geese take off flying. He shouted, "And now they're flying!" The man from Tennessee was so upset that he'd been sitting there watching geese that he packed up his gear in a huff, got in his car, and drove away. Not a moment after Tennessee guy stormed off, one of the craziest things I've ever seen in Yellowstone popped out of the trees. Now, I'll grant you, those folks that caught the explosion at Biscuit Basin a few weeks ago got an absolute eyeful. I am so jealous of them and what they witnessed, but I will say that what I saw at Hayden Valley that day was special too. A very unusually white elk jumped out of the edge of the trees. He looked like a marshmallow, and what a goofball he was. He was clearly the court jester of the herd, and if I may say, the other elk had heard his jokes too many times already. This elk jumped from place to place as though he was looking for some kind of reaction from any of his friends, and not a single one of them gave him so much as a sideways glance. He didn't care. He just kept dancing around like it was the best day ever. What a funny contrast. The Tennessee guy thought that he had had the worst day ever, but maybe if he had stuck around long enough to see that elk, maybe he would have changed his mind about that.